What would the world be like if everybody really had the freedom that they wanted? What would it look like if we all had the freedom that we could dream of? And whatever that means for you as an individual. Can you imagine that? Right? What would the world be like? Well, isn't that worth working towards?
What if the key to transformation lies in shifting your perspective? Hi, I'm Dr. Payal Beri. Welcome to Reframing Perspectives. Every conversation here is about one thing: how empathy changes the way we lead, connect, and create impact. Each episode, we get to explore deep, authentic conversations designed to expand your mindset. Whether you're looking to transform your leadership, deepen your relationships within your circle, your community, and friends, or gain clarity in your own personal growth, each episode will inspire you to see things differently and take action. If you're ready to challenge your thinking and embrace transformation, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. There are very few people in my community, whether it's in my circle of friends, my circle of colleagues, and even me, to be honest, that can actually say that we practice what we preach. Not that common, right? We're all a work in progress. If we're preaching about something, it's because we know deeply inside that that's something we need to work on. But Kvon Tucker is one of those rare breeds who actually practices what he preaches. I met Kvon 15 years ago when I was transitioning from nonprofit, working as a clinical therapist, moving into corporate America as an org psychologist. And he was just exceptional at wanting to actually care about people. His favorite tagline is, "All I know is how to help people grow." And if there's anybody that I have seen grow in 15 years and truly live out and embody that transformation, it's Kvon. And through his work now as a purpose-driven executive and leadership coach for his own company, the founder of Consciously, Kvon leads that cultivation. He leads a community of powerfully light-bearing leaders who are centered on co-creating a new world where every leader is free to create and lead the lives of their dreams. And he's worked with senior leaders at Amazon, at Google, at Netflix, at Meta, at LinkedIn. He himself has worked in those places. That's where he grew into those journeys and the evolution continued on him. But this man has truly transformed who he was, how he was brought up, who he is today. And if there is someone where I'd say, like, that's somebody who is not just living out what they're doing, but if you want to trust that if there's someone who's going to get you there, it's going to be Kvon. I'm so excited to talk to you today because I know that when you and I talk, no stone is left unturned. And Absolutely. It goes very deep. And I actually want to start with showing you something. First of all, it's 10 years that we've known each other.
Is it?
Yes. I started working there in 2014. It's been 10 years.
Wow.
So happy 10-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Hey. Kudos to us.
I want to just kind of show you this because I think you remember the fact that, and for those who are listening to us and not watching it, but the Gift of Imperfection. Kvon, you gave this to me, and here's your note that you wrote in here.
Oh my God, what did I write? I don't even remember. I know I gave that to you, but what did I write?
You said, "Hey, Payal, this is, as Jessica would put it, a transitional object for you. I like to think of it as a gift of something to remember me by. I figured since you enjoy Brené's words, I would give you more of them. This book has been very important for both Jessica and I hope you find some value in it as you continue to grow and flex your vulnerability. I feel fortunate to have met such a genuine soul and hope our relationship continues to blossom. I wish you the best in trusting and loving yourself and can't wait to see the outcomes. Kvon."
Wow. What a thoughtful guy he was.
2014. I know.
Wow.
At a time when I was going through, figuring out my whole journey of identity and just transitioning careers and all this stuff. And I don't think it's any coincidence that, the one person who understood me at this very traditional workplace was you. And the two quirkiest people are the ones who left.
Yeah.
And 10 years later.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Like, I'm reading that and like makes me want to tear up for some reason. I don't know why. Well, since you bring that up, it's when you were on your way out, I just admired you, and I so respected the choice that you made, and I have looked up to you in those ways because, yeah, we were both odd ducks in that environment. I think that's what made us connect. We're like, this place is, are we crazy or this place crazy? And I think we both decided that that place was crazy, and I think that was the right decision. And you did your own thing, and you've been doing your own thing ever since, and I've just kinda watched, and I'm like, "One day, I'm gonna be like Pyle and do my own thing," and finally, I'm there. It took me a little longer, and I had to work
You're
at some other
eons.
crazy, crazy places to finally learn all the lessons I needed to learn, but I had you as a North Star and a guide, and a model for me to also just trust myself, and so here we are 10 years later doing our own thing.
Doing our thing, living out the vulnerability, putting it out there, and like you like to say, right? I just wanna help people.
Yeah, perfectly imperfect,
Yeah. So I wanna
so
dig in with you because what you have done, I mean, to be honest, you're my North Star. So we can actually just sit here and compliment each
um,
other all day long
I
and
like that,
just
yeah,
keep doing
like,
that.
if people can feed
Right?
off the love, that would be great. I'll make a
Exactly.
hell
The
of
vibration, the good vibes. We don't have to break people down, people. We can
a
lift them all up.
podcast.
But,
Yeah,
you have done something just what people talk about and what people wish, but then they don't take action because the taking the action part is obviously the hardest part. And, we're just comfortable, right? So what you've done is just so phenomenal. And I really want people to hear your entire story. I want people to
mhm,
understand that what you came from, what you saw as your perspective, what you were ingrained with, right? Built in with, because that's ultimately what this is. Is like we come in this world and we're just fed a bunch of things and then it's like output, this is how we should think without sometimes
mhm,
given a chance because life is happening so fast that we're not
yeah,
allowed to pause. And then when you pause and you look up and you're like, "What? What?"
mhm,
And you now, just in the 10 years that I've known you, have created now this incredible life in Costa Rica for you and your family. You're actually living out what you talk about. Because I think that there is a massive difference where there's always that joke, right? Like chefs eat the worst food, doctors have the worst diet, right?
mhm, mhm,
Lawyers lie really well, like whatever it is. Like they know all the loopholes, so they know how to get it themselves. But you're not that. Like, you are a coach, you are someone who is a healer, you believe in transformation, and you have done that yourself.
mhm. Thank you. Thank you for that acknowledgement. As you say that, I know it's like integrity is just so supremely important to me. This work that I do it because it like saved my life. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have this work, if I didn't have counseling and I didn't have coaching. So it's like, well, why wouldn't I do something to offer that back to the world? Because it might save somebody else's life or help them create the life of their dreams. So
Yeah.
it's not only am I the president, but I'm also a client kind of kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's
we gotta
true.
be, right?
It's true.
So
Yeah.
let's kinda go back there, right? Because obviously the whole premise of today or just like the reason why this is out here is because there's so many of us that, it can be really hard to break through that. And there's a lot that we have to do. And there's also this idea that gets sold to people about like, oh, just do this one thing and you'll see your whole life resolve. And it's like, no, this is an everyday
Mm,
commitment. It's a muscle. It's like you don't go to the gym one time and then say, all right, I'm good. Now I can eat that pizza. Right.
yeah.
It's just looking at that. So let's go all the way back to when you were growing up and when you were actually, this was such a foreign concept to you, would have never even considered where you are today.
Mm,
What
yeah.
was it that you would say that you valued at that time? What was it that the community around you valued?
Mm.
And what did you so fundamentally believe at that time that now you see it as, whoa, that was clearly a path that would have taken me down a wrong way?
Uh,
We're just
the
going to
first
start light.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was just do what your parents tell you to do.
Mm-hmm.
That will get you somewhere. And for me, just doing what my family told me to do, or just doing what my culture told me to do, or being the kind of son or brother that my culture wanted me to be and my family wanted me to be, that is what led me into suicidal depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it got me a bachelor's and master's degree before age of 25. It got me a six-figure job right on the heels of all of that. And then I wake up and I'm 28 years old and I want to end my life just doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do. And so what I have been living now is figuring out really who I am and doing what I want to do. Like that's the shift, right? And I'm still naturally always going to be somewhat informed by my culture, informed by familial traditional values to some degree, but they're more suggestions and guidance than commands like they used to be. And that like shifting that way has led me to begin to make some of these courageous changes and led me to feel more free and fulfilled. And that no one in my family ever said, "Okay, Kvon, go move to Costa Rica." Like, no, no, this is crazy. It's crazy talk. Yet it's something that we really wanted to do, and to some degree felt like we needed to do to create the kind of environment that we wanted for my family. Right? It's like it didn't have
Yeah.
to be Costa Rica, but we needed a change, and there was something about this place that was calling us. So it's really like following our hearts, following our visions for our lives. But like there's 10 years between that version of myself that was suicidally depressed and this version of me today, right? Long journey to get here.
Yeah. So what was that? What was that when you talk about that, right? Like that whatever it was, it got you to whatever seemed right on paper, but mentally and emotionally, you were in a very, very difficult place. So,
Yeah.
what was it about the thinking, the culture? What was the pressure? What was that was going on within you that made you think that even all of this is not enough?
I think for those 28 years, right? And it's so funny you bring that Gifts of Imperfection because that book helped me through that time period. You think I'm 28 years, for 28 years, I wasn't really myself.
Mm.
I was living life kind of like as a lie. And I actually think that that is what leads people down those paths because the reason why you don't feel fulfilled is because you are not being you. So
What
the
was it that felt hidden though? What was the lie?
mm, hmm, it's like really the question is how many lies? Um,
Yeah.
how many lies? Like how important are different aspects of my culture to me? How important is it for me to make six figures? Like how important is it for me to work in corporate America? How important is it for me to work in tech, right? Like these are all things that I thought I wanted because I thought they would make me like look good or they thought they would give me some kind of accolades. I thought they might make me feel better about myself. But they
Mhm.
weren't actually things that I wanted. Again, they were things that somebody somewhere along my journey told me like these are the things that you need to do. These are things that are good for you. These are ways of being that will make you successful, right? You make money and you're going to be happy. And like, I believe that. I was like, all I got to do is make six figures and then I've solved all the world's issues. That's that's not it. It's not about the money. As we learn over time, but I truly believe that that's all I needed to do
Yeah.
for that time frame. And so when I got to that place and I had done all the things that I was told to do that I thought were going to make me happy and feel good about myself and make me successful, when I checked all the boxes, I woke up one day and I'm like, well, I'm miserable. And this, what happened? And that's what made me begin to really do the deep work and reflection. First, I had to go into the depression. I'm like, oh shit, well, I did all the things and now I'm depressed. So I had to climb out of that. And then the climb out of that was this journey of figuring out who I am and what I really wanted.
What did it mean when your culture and everything is telling you, like, this is what you've got to do. And this is why it's like when I think about that, right? And being someone who's also a South Asian and, comes from an immigrant family, all of that, there is so much fear that gets put in that you
Mm,
gotta be able to make it. You gotta get out of what we've seen, right? All the
mm,
stories you hear, like in my day when, when I was trying to do this, or this is how hard I had to work just so you could go move forward and ahead in your life, right? Like all
right.
of those things, that guilt that is like, I cannot do anything to taint the hard work that my parents or my family have done to get me to where I am today. So, how
Yeah.
dare I do something that could be upsetting or different, right? But
Mm,
even that system that is being bought into, that all of these material pieces, all these external things are what's going to bring you that happiness. It's like feeding into that capitalism of
mm,
our wonderful place that I
mm.
reside in, currently.
I still pay US taxes, okay? Like, I'm still a US citizen, still pay taxes. Still connected.
I'm
Just
still
don't feel
connected, yeah.
different.
Just created the boundary in the space, but, so what was that? What was it that felt that I guess the question really is that when did you realize that you're moving ahead and you're doing these things, but when you were growing up and when you're seeing everybody else around you, your friends around you, everybody else around you, when did you realize that I think I'm a little different than this, but at the same time, you're just trying to fit into it, and that's what kinda took you down that road?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I actually feel like I've always known I
Mhm.
was different. I've always kind of felt different. And, as a typical kid, I did my best to fit in because I didn't want to stand out. I've,
Mhm.
I've always felt different. Like even down to my upbringing, it's like I grew up in Kansas in a very like white neighborhood. So when I moved to California and all my friends were black, like I'm different, I talk different. People were like, oh, you talk this way. And people used to say I talk white. And like I have a
Mm.
lot of therapy sessions around that.
Yeah.
But I've always felt different, but I did my best to fit in, and then at some point, to your question, I realized, like, no, Kayvon is different,
Mm.
and I started to embrace that difference. But for many, many years, again, probably up until age 28, I really did my best to fit in, and, like, I think about like, I was the only one of my friends to go to college, only friends I grew up with. Only one to go to college, that made me different. Only one to go to grad school, that made me different from, like, a lot of people. It made me different from the people that I went to college with. And so getting a full-time gig at Southern California Edison and making six figures, that also made me different. So, like, the differences just kinda started to grow and grow until I had to face it. Like, "Oh, Kayvon is different." Right? I'm different, and that's also really uncomfortable because also as a black man in the world, you stand out already, and to be a black man who is different, then it's like, well, who do I connect to? Right? And that can
Yeah.
be a really really lonely experience, and that has been and is sometimes a lonely experience. Like, okay, well, I don't know who are my people if I am so different, if I stand out in all these different ways. So it's been a journey to try to build community, to feel connected to something other than these different identities, because the identities aren't enough for me to feel connected.
Yeah. So, that right there, like being a black man who's already a little different and having to just embrace that and like start to see yourself, accept yourself and shift into owning it, claiming it. And then, with your work, of course, you're working with leaders of, everyone. But I remember when you first were getting started with Consciously, that was a really big part of it was how do I help other black men see that there is, a more sensitive way to exist. And there's a way to accept yourself. And what has that journey been like with
Mm.
you discovering that like, wait a second, I don't have to succumb to these cultural nuances. I don't have to succumb to these expectations and, you know, expecting that for yourself, but then being able to then take others on that journey.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, I'll say for me, it's actually been really healing. because I can now see the value, right? It's like I had to first begin to own it myself and like get okay with it. Like, okay, this is Kvon. Like I'm soft and squishy on the inside. Always have been, I'm romantic. Like these are things, this is me. I definitely like have, good, strong masculine energy, but also have balance with feminine energy. And that's something that like was really uncomfortable for me, is like to own the feminine energy that I can walk the earth with.
Yeah,
But
because, as a strong man, like, you don't do that. That's not
no,
you're
no,
gonna
it's
get hated on.
tough.
Like, who do you think you
Yeah.
are?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, that's stuff that, this is maybe another podcast, but I used to get picked on because of that. 'Cause I've always had feminine energy and always been, I was raised by nothing but women. So I just kind of was more feminine. But that was really uncomfortable. It made me stand out. So different points in time, I was like, no, I'm tough. I'm like really tough, you guys. Like, I promise you. And people would be like, hey, Vaughn, you're not tough. I'm like, no, I promise you I'm tough. um, but today it is so sorely needed.
Yeah.
Right. And I call it divine masculine, which is balance
Mm.
between masculinity and femininity. It is so sorely needed. It has become more valued.
Mhm.
Right? Like, so now I'm rewarded handsomely for having this balance between feminine and masculine energy, and being able to toggle and be able to use both as a coach, and to show other men the value of that, to show other men how to be fluid and be firm, right?
Yeah.
Like that makes you powerful. And this is what makes me a stronger leader, makes me a better husband, makes me a better coach, makes me a better CEO, is being able to connect to and utilize both forms of energy in different ways. So today it makes a lot of sense. And I had to kind of go through all the things I went through to get to this place where now I'm like paid well to show up as my
Yeah.
full self. Right. And that's the job. And that's what I encourage other leaders to do, is like, hey, like, okay, so you have this, but you also have a little bit of this. How about we cultivate that too? And what would it offer you to cultivate that energy in you?
Yeah. I love that you said divine masculinity, because you hear a lot about divine femininity and, women claiming that. And it's just like, I love the divine masculinity and being able to like reframe that, because something that just like popped up when you were talking about that is that there's a lot of times this onus, right? And I'm sure you have a daughter, so I'm sure you think about this also a lot, is that there's always this like onus that's put on women for like, you are to blame if a man did something. You are the one who's responsible for his reaction to you, right?
Mm, mm,
And that is also one of those shifts. I'm curious to know, and I want to know like something very specific that like, even for yourself, like when you were seeing this around of how you used to think that it was of how I as a man need to show up,
mm,
versus as you went through this transition, you've married an incredible woman, Jessica, and how she's helped like shape that as well, and how that has shifted, that perspective has shifted for you specifically.
mm. What comes to me, and maybe it's just because we're talking about masculinity, but what comes to me is the definition around like what masculinity is. And I'm not gonna purport to have the definition of masculinity, but I can say that what has shifted and maybe expanded for me around the definition of masculinity is like I used to think it was like putting food on the table, right? It's like provide resources, like that's it.
Acts of
Like,
service.
yeah, I did the job, right? Money on the table. Can I go? Can I go now? And it can be that,
And then
right?
her getting upset that that's it,
Right,
like, and you're thinking like, "But I did my job, like, what are you talking
right.
about?" Right?
That's it. That's my job. This is my
Yeah.
job. I'm done.
But how much of
Um,
there also is this idea then that, like, you're not allowed to connect because as a man, you're not supposed to, there's
mm,
supposed to be there's an emotional distance that gets created, right? That women
yeah,
are emotional, men are not. Men are providers, women are nurturers, and so it is not a man's responsibility to be able to nurture and care for, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah. And that's
shifting
the
that.
same thing. And that to me is when I think about the expansion of the definition of masculinity, that's what I think a lot of people could benefit from, because it is like providing is a part of it, but it doesn't mean like we all have both masculine and feminine energy in us.
Mhm.
uh, we're all created by that energy, and so it's in us, it's just maybe not cultivated,
Right.
right? It just might be like laying dormant. I'm fortunate to be married to someone who like won't allow that, like won't allow there to be a small dimension of masculinity in her life. So she has called forth more of that. And we have had tough conversations about how empathetic I am being or I am not being. And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Well, I'm a trained certified coach. What do you mean I'm not being empathetic?" And the reality is like she's a licensed certified psychotherapist. So
Mhm.
her bar for empathy is higher than most, which is sometimes challenging for me as a man to
I
try to
can imagine.
reach to, but it
Right.
calls me forward, right? And
Yeah.
it invites me, if I don't judge it and I don't get defensive, which I'm a human being, I do
Yeah.
sometimes, but she calls me forward like, okay, well, that is empathetic. And this is what empathy could also look like, right? Empathy could also look like this, Kayvon. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try that next time, right? And then my empathy expands, my feminine
Yeah.
energy grows through that. And so for me, it's been a blessing to be married to someone like Jessica because of where she comes from and because of her professional training and her career, because we've been able to both grow and develop both energies, and me being who I am, I've supported her to expand her definition of masculinity. So all of it is, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful marriage, like in all the essence of the word. And
Yeah.
us being business partners helps too.
I mean, it's not easy for couples to always be business partners, so I think that there's a lot there too, and, you said something there that I think is really powerful, is that because you're married to somebody who is a therapist, and so her understanding of it and the bar is set really high. So what does that mean for every other person? Is that, are they just settling with themselves? Are they not, like, should that bar that Jessica has, shouldn't that actually be the bar? And what you're doing now with your work, with, what I do and all of it, is that freedom that you're also trying to help others create for themselves. Isn't
Yeah.
part of that also a level of, like, just self-love, self-acknowledgement of, like, what I am worthy of, like, what I can create? Because a lot of that, things that we just settle for, we just justify, right? I have so many around me that just justify that, well, that's just not realistic,
Mm,
that's just not the framework that society
yeah.
really works with. Like, you know,
Yeah.
there's a few of you, like, I get it, that works for you, but majority of us, like, this is really how it's done. And so
Mhm.
there's just this bought into this idea that this is just how it is. Don't ruffle the feathers. Don't rock the boat. And that really shows up even when you're working with these individuals, when you're working with
Yeah.
these leaders,
Yeah.
when you're working with anyone. It's just like there's so much of that, like, settling for,
Mhm.
because if you question it, you're reprimanded.
Yeah. Or yes. Well, that definitely happens, right? What Jess and I talk about, what I practice a lot with my clients is dreaming. Um, and Jess and I talk about imagination, the power of imagination, right? Like if we can, everything in our life was first an idea. So what if we just took time to imagine what we want, imagine what's possible, right? Some leadership term calls it vision. I call it dreaming. What's your dream? What do you really want? What is your heart desire? Right? These are the questions I ask leaders. Like what do you want to see happen? And then yeah, saboteurs will jump in. Oh, it's not possible. It's gonna take no, no, no. Who cares about that? What do you want? Right? And if you can get people to really just hold that, eventually they create it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. If you just hold the vision, if you hold the dream and then you just day after day take steps towards that dream, one day you will make that dream a reality, whatever it is. And this is, you and I, before we started, we're talking about my clarity. And this is the thing that I'm doing with consciously. Like, I want people to dream. Like, what would the world be like if everybody really had the freedom that they wanted? What would it look like if we all had the freedom that we could dream of? And whatever that means for you as an individual, can you imagine that? Right? What would the world be like? Well, isn't that worth working towards? Right? Isn't that what we want? Like, we talk about freedom, but like, do we ever really imagine what the world would look like if we all had what we wanted? That's what I'm encouraging and want more and more leaders to do, is just hold the dream and then day by day take steps towards it.
So you bring up something interesting, and I wonder if you've faced this, is that there are people who actually don't know how to dream because they were never allowed to.
Absolutely. It
How
is
do you take them through that?
that, I face that nearly every day. Anytime I have a new client, well, I can't say anytime. Most of my first coaching clients have no skill in this. We all have the capability, but we don't have the skill. It is a muscle that needs to be built, just like any other muscle. But it is a muscle that can be built with practice. And so what I do in my coaching is I just create the space. uh, can't tell you how many times a leader has told me I don't know to a question I've asked. And I'll say, okay, great. Well, let's just sit here. What comes to you? Something will come. Ask the question again, ask it in a different way. And then over time, you're like, well, you know what? I do see this. Boom. There you go. You've already started. Right?
Mm.
That's all it takes. And then it's like we do that over and over again. Next thing you know, people are just telling you what they want, telling you their dreams. Dreams get bigger and bigger. One day it's like, I want to lose weight. And the next thing it's like, I want to start a gym. And the next thing it's like, now I want 10 gyms. This is how our dreams grow. But it does take practice. And if you're starting at zero, it doesn't mean that you can't do it, but you do have to create space for it. And you have to have somebody to hold you to it. And that's, to me, now I'm selling coaching, but that's the power of coaching.
It
That's the
is.
power of coaching. Yeah.
It's having someone in your corner, right? It's like having someone that's like undeniably in your corner that isn't going to judge you, isn't going to shame you, isn't going to validate you when you're trying to get out of something that is what
Mhm.
you want, right?
Right.
And I think
Mhm.
that's the hard part, is that we've also created this space with, whether it's with our algorithms, whether it's with the bubbles that we create, that all we're doing is we're constantly just validating one belief, and we're
Mm.
just like deepening it and turning it into like a Grand Canyon level of depth, right? That now to try to get out of it and see something different is so challenging and so
Yeah.
hard, because you have now just bought yourself into it. You've created a culture of yes people around you. We've created a society where people are scared to even just speak up about what it
Yeah.
is, because, are they going to get canceled? Are they going to get cut out? Because there's this idea that we
Yeah.
can't have a difference of perspective and learn from that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I see this, that with that dreaming and with all of those things and what people want to create, sometimes I see the other side where like they hold on to a dream and an escape so much that they're not actually looking at how they're causing destruction continuously around
Mm.
them, because
Mhm.
they're not looking at like, I'm holding on to this idea that I want and I think that I'm doing that, but really internally, like everything I'm doing is sabotaging myself from actually getting that. And it's
Yeah.
like, because we've just believed in that like one way of thinking.
Mhm. Yeah, we build worlds
Yeah.
around the narratives that we hold. Whatever narrative that is, whether that narrative serves us or doesn't serve us, whether it serves our dreams or not. So we might have a dream, and then the narrative we hold is that that dream's not possible, right? It still could be a dream, but like, if you don't believe it's possible, then you're stuck. Or
Yeah.
you believe it's too hard, or you don't have the resources, or whatever
Mhm.
narratives you hold, we build worlds around it, right? Our whole world. And that's a part of the work that I do with my clients, is like helping them unpack the narratives. Okay, so like, what's the energy around that? Well, what's the story you're telling? Oh, interesting. How does that serve you? Usually,
Yeah.
if I ask that question, usually the answer is it doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
And so but there is a lot to unpack when it comes to
The shock.
creating. Mhm. Mhm. Say more. Say more.
When someone is coming out of that, like, and they're like, "It's not serving me," and stuff, but, like, it's still this abstract, intellectualized understanding of it. So taking them through the body emotion and actually having them sit with and recognize and face it, like, look in the mirror facing it and seeing like,
Mm.
"Oh, it's really not oh, I'm on this path of, like," when people think that they get surprised when something doesn't work out, or they get surprised or shocked when, like, something doesn't come, but they're like, "But I've been dreaming this. What do you mean? See, manifestation doesn't work." And it's like, "Well, no, there hasn't actually been yet a
Yeah.
readiness to accept that, how have I contributed to these subtle
Mhm.
micro actions every single day to repeating this cycle over and over and over
Yeah.
again?"
That is step 1, and that is
Yeah.
a hard step. It is the one that most people, I don't wanna say most people, I don't know the numbers, but many people never even get there.
Yeah.
Many people never get to the point where they can see and own how they have contributed to all of the negative things that have happened in their lives, all of the things, or contributed just to stagnation, right? It might not
Mhm.
even be negative, it might just not be like growth or
Yeah.
progress that they want. Many people can't see or own just that, right? And when you can, like, that's a hard pill to swallow. Right, and I've had to swallow that pill multiple times in my life, but it's a hard one to
Yeah.
swallow. It's a really hard one to swallow.
So let me ask you this then. What about as again, let's talk about like Kayvon going from Kansas, which I did not know that part, but going from Kansas to Long Beach, growing up in Long Beach, and then just moving around and ultimately ending up in Costa Rica. But you've got, again, like you mentioned, friends and people in your life that didn't take that path, and they're generally content with the fact that they have this chaos around them. They've accepted it, right? And
Mm,
they are not willing to see the flip of what could happen. What do you think that's about when you
mm.
see it, especially within your own community and your own culture, and then they're shaming you for having done something different?
Hmm. Been a long journey with this one. I don't know if this is gonna answer your question, but I can share a seminal moment for me was when I moved from Long Beach to San Jose. I'd made this big move, and it's my first job, so I moved to San Jose to work for Netflix, right? It's like big job,
I remember that moment.
huge opportunity. Yeah, I remember conversations you and I had during that time frame. Huge opportunity, and my friends didn't seem all that excited about it for me. And in my mind, they were supposed to congratulate me. It was like maybe a parade or something like that. I don't know, but I expected more excitement. And again, this is the value of having a coach, a therapist, and or both. I'm talking to my therapist about this process. Like, I'm doing all these great things, and this is a huge thing for me, and my friends are nowhere near. And he's like, Kayvon, you're mad at your friends when you're the one who changed. And I was like,
Mm.
oh.
No. Mic drop.
And ever since then, I've held that. I've held that. Again, I'm the crazy one.
Yeah.
And I can own that. I can own that. And this is not a normal thing to do. It is not a normal thing to change rapidly, to move jobs, to leave the country. This is not normal stuff. And so when people have negative reactions, I know that that's their own fear because I'm changing. And I can't expect people around me to get it. I have. I have expected that, and that's led me into not so nice places. I've been angry, I've been upset, I've been frustrated, but the reality is if you haven't done what I've done, there's absolutely no way you could ever fully understand why I've made the choices that I've made. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible, and so I hold that, and I have to hold my friends with compassion, they don't get it, like, they just got their crazy friend Kvon who just keeps making moves, and, like, they love me for that, and I'm
Yeah.
appreciative, I'm grateful that they just appreciate, like, me doing my own thing, but that again has taken I moved to San Jose in 2015, so that's, again, almost 10 years ago when I started this rapid change process in my life, and me and Jessica together. But it's been a journey. It's been a journey to like one have that and own that like, oh, Kayvon, I am disrupting their life by making these changes for my life. And I gotta
Mm.
own that. I gotta own that. And they lost their friend. I
Mm.
wonder how that feels.
And
So it's
that right there is that hard part where especially when you come from, for me, right, coming from a South Asian family and a community, it's like it's a very collective culture. So you have to think about the greater good of the community versus like yourself, right? And in
Mhm.
that, you grow up with a lot of like, how could you do that? Like, the family needs this, or like, the community, like, this is what's important for the community. Like, or that's where that whole idea of what are people going to say? What's going to happen? Or, how are you going to look? Right. Because it's all about preserving the image or the look or whatever. And it's like preserving that respect around the community. And what you just said right there, I mean, definitely going to be sitting with me now. And I'm going to reflect on that. It's just like, yeah, like when you are the one changing, it is not their responsibility to have to accept that or not. It is your choice to decide, can I accept that I am changing? And can I accept that that may mean that my community is going to shift? And I think that that part of the abandonment that can come from that or bring up more of it, being outcasted because as humans, right, we belong in a social construct. So being the outlier, being the one who's not part of the village, that can be enough for someone's nervous system and for someone to be like, it's not worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that would be a totally sane choice. And I don't judge those people. Right? This thing that I know you are up to, that I am up to, that other entrepreneurs I know are up to, like, this is not the easy road.
Mm-mm.
This is the hard road.
I
And
call it
not
off-roading.
what's that?
It's like off-roading, and I don't have any desire to get back on the highway.
I
I'm
love that.
off-roading.
Off-roading, and then sometimes you fall off the damn 4 by 4 and you're like,
Oh my
"Oh."
gosh. Sometimes the 4x4 only's got 3 wheels.
This is not for everybody.
Mm-mm.
This is not for everybody, and I get that. I get that
Mhm.
now, but it is for a few, right? And
Mhm.
I think over time, it will be for more, right? But it takes some people to, like, okay, make the path a little bit less rocky for others. And that's what I wanna do. I wanna make the path a little less rocky, so I don't want everybody to go through suicidal depression, like, no, you don't need to do that. You don't have to
Yeah.
do that to learn these lessons. I did. Right?
Mhm.
But I don't want you to feel like you need to go through that kind of trench to find your path. But for some of us, that's the way we need to go. This is, I don't, as we talk about me living in Costa Rica, before I moved here, I was like, man, I want everybody to come out here. Like, this is great. It's gonna be fantastic. We were planning it with a couple other people. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna buy some land and build a community for ourselves. Now that I'm here, I'm like, "Oh, no, this is not for everybody." Like, you should probably stay home because I don't know that you will make it. You probably one of the people who come out here and then, like, have some fits and
Yeah.
starts and then go back home. It's not for everybody. Use
Yeah.
entrepreneurial path. I believe the path of purpose is for everybody, but it has to be at the right time and at the right pace,
And it has to
you
be the
know?
purpose that's for them, right? And I think that that's really important is that there's a lot of that it's like we're just perpetuating and imposing that like, "No, no, no, this works, so you should do it." Instead of and it's like, how is that any different than what we were just escaping, right?
Right,
So,
absolutely.
it's like, no, let's hold space for what is it that is a purpose for you and what you want and get you to that place. But that actually is like, when you said that, like, there's no judgment about people who are kind of like, I want to stay in this pact, I want to stay here. But that resembles a lot of what happens in corporate America. That resembles a lot about, again, just group thinking, right? So when you're working with leaders, when you're working with these individuals that you are trying to find and get them their sense of freedom and help them create that sense of freedom for their teams, for the community, for society, whatever it is, how is that like fine line being
Yeah, it's a
cared for?
so like now I'm thinking some of my clients might have reactions to this if they ever heard this. But I firmly believe like nobody belongs in corporate America. Nobody belongs in like big corporate.
Hands down.
That is that like ultimately, but right now it might be the best place for them. It
Yeah.
might be just what they need. I'm grateful. I wouldn't be living in Costa Rica if I didn't accumulate all these damn shares through Netflix. I wouldn't have been able to do the things that I've done if
Right.
I didn't follow that path. So I'm tremendously grateful for my career and journey through corporate America. And some people need that to help
Mhm.
them get to where they're going. So the way I look at it is when I start to work with somebody and we're like, okay, like they've hired me, they want to feel closer and connected to their purpose, they want more fulfillment and freedom in their lives. We just start simple and small. Like, okay, so like what excites you? Oh, well, I really like being a coach. Okay, well, shit, let's do more of that. Let's add more time on your calendar to coaching, or let's add, and I'm like, could be sports coaching. Let's add more time to
Mhm.
you swimming. Let's add more time to you reading books. Like whatever brings you joy and gives you a sense of fulfillment. Let's just start doing that. And it could be looking at their job. Well, what parts of your job do you really like? Oh, I
Mhm.
like talking to my teammates. I don't like project meetings. Okay, well, let's flip the ratio. All right, let's move towards 80/20, whatever that looks like for you. So there are ways to shift people's careers where they're at, but there's also ways to add things to their lives to create more fulfillment. Again, similar to like visioning and dreaming, practicing things that are fulfilling is a muscle that you build. So if you're at 5% fulfillment in your days, well, what's going to help us get to 10%?
Yeah.
And then 15, 20, so forth, until one day you're spending all of your time doing things that fill you up, fulfilling
Yeah.
your purpose, right? That's again, that's a 10-year journey,
Yeah.
or a longer or shorter for some folks. It just depends, but it's definitely a journey.
Yeah. It's so important to recognize that because I think there's this idea that, whenever anyone like us talks about freedom and talks about purpose, it's like we're telling them to go rogue and like to just like
Yeah,
suddenly go to
crazy.
Burning Man. Yeah. Like go to Burning Man and quit your job and just like,
Ayahuasca
spend the
retreat
summer
and
vacation. Right. Yeah. Like all of it.
yeah.
Right. And it's just like, first of all, I haven't done any of that myself. Um, Second
Neither
of
have I.
all, it really is that idea that all I think that we're just trying people to do is just look at life a little bit more gently and look at your own life and look at like everything that's happened from a place of like just again perspective, right? Is
Yeah,
this serving you? Is this serving your community? Is this, like I think that there needs to be a balance between individualism and collectivism. I don't believe in 100% collectivism and I don't believe in the extreme individualisticness that we now have cultivated, not just here in the US, but honestly, because of technology, I think there's like such a broken sense of community. And
mm,
that's why when pivotal things do happen in our world, like some people just don't even care.
yeah,
So they can choose to look away, right? And so that like piece of humanity is just like missing right now. And I
yeah,
love that what you said about corporate. The thing that came to my head is that, you know, we're an ever evolving group of species. And there was the agricultural
mhm,
time, there was the industrial revolution. We're right now in, this technological revolution and what is happening. To think and expect that corporate is always going to exist is also, yeah, maybe in our lifetime, but to think that like it's always going to exist, I think is a fallacy.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
to actually look at ultimately, even when you're looking at corporate, you're looking at anything, well, you're not doing business with the company. You're doing business with people, right? And I know that's something that we always say, but to actually then show up as that, like show up as human, show up as, who you want to be, So in your journey, and I think your journey is so phenomenal and honestly, like something that I always like look at like, wow, like I remember where you were and look at where you are and how you show up on LinkedIn, how you show up on social media, how you show up like putting yourself out there, that vulnerability, that openness. I
Mm.
think it is again a testament to your own journey of being a Black man growing up expecting a certain way to exist, breaking those barriers, shifting that narrative, shifting your own ideology behind
Yeah.
how I need to exist in this world, and now passing it on to your
Yeah.
community. I mean, and you may say, like, okay, that's a 10-year journey, but I look at that as like, you're going to turn, you just mentioned that you turned 40 in November, right?
Yeah.
It's a
40.
40-year journey. And
Hmm.
because it's
Absolutely.
taking all of those experiences, those subtle moments, and bringing you to where you are today. So
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for shifting your perspective, for the fact that you took a chance on yourself. Because if you didn't, Kayvon, those people in your lives that today are being transformed because you're doing this work would not have you.
Mm. Mm. Thank you. Thinking about reframing perspectives, like that moment back then, being suicidally depressed was one of the toughest times in my life. And today I see it as a gift.
Mm,
I'm grateful. It was a tough time,
yeah.
but I'm grateful for that whole experience, because without it, I wouldn't have the clarity and conviction about what I want today for the world and for others. Right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have consciously, as you said, like consciously was born out of that time. And for me, like it's the greatest gift, right? And being on your journey and watching you grow is also one of the greatest. It's kind of weird now we're talking about it. I'm like, this is wild that like I sent you that book and that was like on the heels of this time and here we are too. So it's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's a
It's amazing
testament
to
to it,
reflect.
right?
It's amazing. Yeah, it is. It's amazing to reflect on just where the two of us are, two crazy people who met in this crazy place, who have continued their crazy journeys.
Yeah.
And I use crazy with the most love that I possibly can. So I think it's important to own who you are. You
Yeah.
know.
And so, with that, I want to ask you the last question, which is all of this journey that has led you to today and everything that you have shifted, you've reframed. What is it in this moment, as you are now thinking forward, that you believe that there may be maybe there's something that you're holding on to, a belief you're holding on to right now that may be worthy of shifting that and reframing that perspective?
Hmm.
And I'll add for the betterment of, serving your community.
It's a great question. What comes to me is, I'm doing this work to support our collective liberation, to support leaders to consciously co-create a new earth, consciously co-create freedom and fulfillment. And I've held this perspective that it's hard work. And sometimes I realize that it doesn't have to be. It
Mhm.
can be easeful, right? It doesn't always have to be a grind. You can find a path that works for you, right? It doesn't have to be disruptive. It can be useful and it can fit into your life. And it's like I love the question because I hadn't really thought about that, but that is true, right? There will be some tough times, but it doesn't always have to be that way. There can be easeful times when you just like, wow, like look at the universe just giving me everything that I want. All I had to do was get really clear,
Yeah,
right? Um, So that's what that question brings up for me.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kayvon, for showing yourself, being here, being so open, creating consciously, and for everyone who, I'm going to say this right now, it's like, you've got to hear your story. I hope you're writing a book or something because I think you'd write something pretty powerful.
I'm
Did I just
working on it. Working
did I
one of
just
those things, one of those things as an entrepreneur, you're like,
Yeah.
this
But where can people hear more about you? Where can they connect with you? How can they, join consciously?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be here. Thank you for the honor of being one of your first guests on this very, very important thing that you are creating in the world. Finding consciously at consciously.one or consciously.one. You can find us on Instagram at consciously1. You can find us on LinkedIn at the same place. You can find me at consciously_Kvon for random fitness and leadership and baby pictures of my daughter and all sorts of stuff. You probably get more value out of following consciously than you get out of following me. But if you're into kooky random stuff,
I
then follow me too.
disagree. I think you post some pretty phenomenal and powerful things,
Oh,
and
thank
you
you.
really, I
Thank
think, challenge people to be like, "Look at me now," and, I'm here for that energy. I'm here for that.
I know what you mean by that. I accept. I receive and accept. Thank you.
Awesome. Well,
Follow
thank
me
you
too.
so
Go
much.
ahead.
Thank you so much, Kayvon, once again. Like, I'm so excited to share this with the world. And again, guys, really connect with Kayvon. He is one of the most open, receiving people that I know. He is someone that you will never regret just having even a 5-minute conversation with. It will change
Wow. Thank
how you
you.
think.
Much love.
So
Much love.
thank you.
And happy anniversary again to you and
Happy
I.
anniversary. I can't wait for the next 10 years and what happens
Oh,
then.
we'll see what happens. Change the world. Change the
Change
world
the world.
together. All right. Take care.
I really hope that you enjoy this episode, and I just have one favor to ask you. If you could just make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a rating and review, it's going to help us tremendously to make sure that we reach as many people as possible that you think should be listening to our episodes. I'll see you next week for another episode, and thank you so much for leaving that one review, that one subscription, and sharing this with your friends.